Former First Lady Michelle Obama has revealed why she and the Queen put their arms around each other during a G20 summit. They were bonding over their sore feet. Eyebrows were raised in 2009 when Mrs. Obama was seen putting her arm around the Queen's shoulders during a Buckingham Palace reception, and the monarch responded with an arm around the American's waist as they stood side by side. But in her memoir Becoming, Mrs. Obama said her conversation with the Queen was about the pain in their feet after a long day stood up in heels. Many publications have reported that at first Mrs. Obama was awestruck by Britain's head of state, who she described as an honest-to-goodness icon. But the Queen, who is famed for her humor which she uses to put nervous guests at ease, commented on how tall the then First Lady was before highlighting how her shoes must be painful. Mrs. Obama wrote, "The Queen then glanced down at the pair of black Jimmy Choos I was wearing. She shook her head. These shoes are unpleasant, are they not?" she said. She gestured with some frustration at her own black pumps. "I confessed then to the Queen that my feet were hurting. She confessed that hers hurt too. We looked at each other then with identical expressions, like, when is all this standing around with world leaders going to finally wrap up?" And with this, she busted out with a fully charming laugh. Mrs. Obama added that despite their positions, they were just two tired ladies oppressed by our shoes, and without thinking she put her arm around the Queen in a gesture of bonding. To some it was an act of sacrilege, the most grave breach of royal protocol, but Mrs. Obama believes the Queen was okay with it. It was thought inconceivable that Mrs. Obama would be unaware of the strict dos and don'ts of interacting with Her Majesty, with number one being that she is not touched. She wrote, "I then did what's instinctive to me anytime I feel connected to a new person, which is to express my feelings outwardly. I laid a hand affectionately across her shoulder. I couldn't have known it in the moment, but I was committing what would be deemed an epic faux pas. However, the warm gesture prompted the Queen to rest her own hand on Mrs. Obama's back. Our interaction at the reception was caught on camera, and in the coming days it would be reproduced in media reports all over the world. A breach in royal protocol. Michelle Obama dares to hug the Queen." It revived some of the campaign-era speculation that I was generally uncouth and lacking the standard elegance of a First Lady, and worried me somewhat too. But I tried not to let the criticism rattle me. If I had done the proper thing at Buckingham Palace, I had at least done the human thing. I dare say the Queen was okay with it too, because when I touched her, she pulled closer, resting a gloved hand lightly on the small of my back." Her memoir also reveals that, when the couple moved into the White House, despite Mr. Obama's job, she would berate him to leave the Oval Office to have dinner with her and their two children. "Family dinners, that was one of the things I brought into the White House," she reveals during an interview with Oprah Winfrey. "That strict code of, you gotta catch up with us, dude. This is when we're having dinner. Yes, you're president, but you can bring your butt from the Oval Office and sit down and talk to your children." The former First Lady said it had been difficult to keep a sense of normality for Malia, now 20, and Sasha, 17, who spent most of their childhood in the White House. During the interview, published in Elle magazine, Mrs. Obama said that her husband drove her mad by regularly coming home later than promised, making him too late to see their girls before bedtime. After Mr. Obama served nearly a decade as president, the family moved to a new home in Washington, and on her first morning without a White House chef fussing over her, she delighted in making her first meal, cheese on toast. "So here I am in my new home," she told Elle magazine. "And I do a simple thing. I go downstairs and open the cabinet in my own kitchen, which you don't do in the White House, because there's always somebody there going, 'Let me get that. What do you want? What do you need?' And I made myself toast." Cheese touched.She recently accused Donald Trump of endangering her family by supporting the birther conspiracy, the inaccurate rumor that her husband was born in Kenya, so was not eligible to be president. She said she would never forgive Mr. Trump and stopped even trying to smile at his inauguration. Mrs. Obama appears on the cover of this month's Elle magazine, which is on sale today.